Outremer, the land beyond the sea. To go on a pilgrimage Outremer was the way medieval Europeans spoke of going on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, to the land beyond the sea. Well, when that became too dangerous to go by land or sea, it became the reason, the excuse for European military invasions called the Crusades, which took place between the 11th and 13th century in the Common Era. One such crusade was an invasion of Egypt, in which crusaders sought to capture Cairo and force the Muslims to give up the Holy Land, Jerusalem, and other cities that were significant to Christians in particular. Well, the Muslim king, Malik al-Kamil, offered to give the Crusaders Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem, and a corridor to the sea if they would only go back to where they came from. Well, the Christian knights thought that this was the very purpose of their crusade and that this would be achieved in acquiring these lands. And they envisioned being home by Christmas. But the religious authorities said, no compromise with the enemy. We will destroy Islam once and for all. Well, this was a terrible disappointment as this news reached the people in the camps, including someone who had come along just to see what the Crusades were all about, Francis of Assisi. Well, he offered to go speak to this Muslim king and perhaps to convert him to Christianity and establish peace. Well, he was given permission, but with no real expectation of success and no military escort. So Francis and one of his Franciscan companions, Illuminato, set off across the wasteland between the two armies. The only word they knew in Arabic was Sultan. Well, they were intercepted by sentinels, beaten and put into chains. But because these ragged infidels kept saying the word Sultan, it was assumed that they had a message. And so they were brought into the presence of Malik al-Kamil, lord of the Ayyubid dynasty and Sultan of Egypt. And he said to them, I am told that you have a message for me, or that you wish to be converted to Islam. And Francis answered, saying, O great Sultan, we're not here to be converted, but rather we are here to convert you to the true way. When this was translated in the presence of the assembly, the warriors drew their scimitars and the imams called out, Sire, you must not listen to them. It is against the law for anyone to speak against the law. They must have their heads cut off. The Sultan said, I am told by my holy men that I must not listen to you, but have you put to death. What do you say to this? And Francis said, O great Sultan, let a bonfire be prepared, and I will enter it. And I invite your holy men to join me, and whoever survives, let them bear witness to the truth. The Sultan said, we will not accept such a challenge. Francis said, then let me go into the fire alone, and if I die, let it be to my sins. The Sultan said, no. According to the legend, Francis and Illuminato stayed for several days into weeks, making their arguments for Christianity, listened with courtesy and patience, and eventually returned safely to Crusader lines with an escort as if for a prince. Francis thought that he had failed. He had failed to save the soul of the Muslim king. He failed to be martyred in the process. But he did what no armed knight could do. He penetrated to the very heartland of the enemy, spoke his truth, and was respected for this and returned safely to his own people alive. As for Malik al-Kamil, he eventually would go through with this promise of offering up Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem, and a corridor to the sea. 10 years later, to Frederick II in a crusade where no one was killed. This is a true story. We know this because to this day, Franciscans are the caretakers of the Western Christian shrines of Outremer, that land beyond the sea.